Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. Brought to you by Blue Sky Business Consulting. We discuss 5 questions in about 15 minutes. Hello again, and everybody. Welcome to season number 7 of the Team Engagement Podcast. This is our first episode of the new season. I'm very excited to welcome my guest. This is Diane Hartz Warsoff. She is the president of Exit Factor, located right here in Salt Lake City, Utah, as well as offices in Lehi, Utah, which are even closer to where I live. Diane, thank you so much. It's exciting to have you. We've known each other for a long time, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you today about leadership and teams. But before we get to those questions, tell us a little bit about Exit Factor and what it is that makes you guys great, what you're doing.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks, Shawn, for having me. And I'm excited to be part of your 7th season. That's amazing. So Exit Factor is a value growth and exit planning consultant business. And what makes us special is that we really focus on helping you harvest the value of your business. We love to, it's a great time of year to talk about harvest. Agreed. And so we work to help you increase your profitability, increase the value of the business, while at the same time helping you as a business owner find more time for yourself, even before you're ready to exit, and also help you figure out what to do next.
Oh, I like that. There are a lot of reasons I cannot promote this concept more. If you're a business owner, you need to talk to Diane and really understand exit planning. Emphasis on planning, not just the transactional part when you get right to that end.
Right.
Plan ahead for it, and it will help you. So definitely talk to Diane and get ready. Even if you're years and years away, start planning now.
And we can also help you have a better business now.
Yes, that's the beauty of it, is that it helps things now as well as planning for the exit. I love that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Diane, thank you for sharing a little bit more about what you do. Let's go ahead and jump into our questions. Question number 1, how do leaders create a psychologically safe environment at work?
Oh, that is a really good question, particularly for someone like me, who has always been a woman in the workforce, but primarily in male-centered businesses. I worked in commercial finance. I was frequently the only woman in the room. I was a lot of times the only mother in the room. And I think psychologically is people need to understand their internal biases. People need to understand that what matters most in the workspace is the job people are doing, not how many children they have at home, not whether their wife has a job or not whether someone's husband has a good job or not. That's something I will die on that stake, because my first job when I moved to Utah, we were corporate relo. My husband was working at American Express, and I got a position at one of the local banks. And one of my colleagues asked me why I wasn't home taking care of my children. I mean, didn't even hide it. And I think that's still an issue here. I don't have an issue with any women that choose to stay home, but if I'm in the workspace, and this is true of women, minorities, everybody should be valued purely on what they are producing and what they are doing to help the team. And I think that's what makes the difference in a good team leadership. Even our own team now, we have 2 teams. We also own Transworld Business Advisors, quick plug. And our team is extremely diverse. We have 2 women. We have several people of color. And I don't care. It doesn't matter, but everybody deserves the same amount of respect, and it has to be based on what they are bringing to the table. And we have to recognize that.
Yeah, I like that. Recognizing their value and what they bring to the table. I think that those are some really effective ways to think about it. Go ahead.
And sometimes having different backgrounds adds a lot of value.
Yes. That's just the key. And that's part of the reason why I'm asking the question, is to empower leaders to think about the different perspectives that people bring to the table. And that's exactly it. I love how you said that, because it's really about allowing people to have that say, to have that input, to have that background, and be able to contribute in ways that are a little bit different than what we might be used to, but are nonetheless helpful. So yeah, go ahead.
Right. And also never assuming things about people. And I think you've learned that about me in many different ways. And I think that's important as well. I think, you know, learn, be willing to learn about people that are different from yourself, learn from them, learn with them. And I think that's the way to do it.
Oh, I love it. Great tips. Thank you for sharing those. Question number 2. This is a bit of a thinker question here for just a second, but think of somebody that's had a profound impact on your life. What's one word that you would use to try to describe them?
The main word is, and there isn't a strong enough word, but supportive and encouraging. And I'm talking about my father.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, feel free
And
to elaborate a little bit.
absolutely. So I'm actually sad because my father kind of followed the same career path my husband and I did. He worked in corporate, and at the age of around 55, he, for various reasons, left his job. Well, they let him leave. That's a nice way of saying it. And he started an M&A firm. So he was doing merger and acquisition work. Sadly, by the time Art and I first started doing Transweld and Exit Factor, he was no longer alive. And I can think of something almost every day where I would say, Dad, I wish you could tell me this, or I wish you could tell me that. But I think the biggest thing is my dad was a lot older. I don't at the time he was born in the 20s, lived through the Depression, and in some ways was very old fashioned. However, when he found out that I wanted to study business and go into finance, he was very proud of me and very encouraging of me. And for both my parents, education was so important. If I came home with a B on my credit card, my report card, my father wanted to know why. And I think that the fact that someone who was raised in an atmosphere where women stayed home, took care of the children, for him to be able to see the potential in me professionally really, really made a huge difference in my life.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing such a tender example of the kind of impact any of us can have on someone else. And I like your words, the support and encouragement, because that's a lot of what any of us need. And if you're in a leadership role, that's a big part of what you can do, is to help support and encourage your team members. I love that. Thanks for sharing those. Great ideas. All right. Question number 3, share your thoughts on how leaders can nurture a sense of a growth mindset, either in themselves or in their team. This idea of a growth mindset. What would you add to that?
A growth mindset is, we all talk about setting SMART goals and setting goals. And of course, we're talking in December and January. People are thinking about what are their goals for the coming year. But I think a growth mindset is looking beyond just the day to day and thinking about potential, right? So, Art and I are in the middle of doing our planning, and we're talking about next year and the year after, but we're also looking down the road. And one of the things that we want to do within our own business is nurture a growth mindset amongst the people in our team, because we're hoping one day that one of those team members could succeed us in owning the business. And so we talk about exit planning. And I think one of the best things you can do when you're exit planning is looking at your team and figuring out how can you help them have ownership. It's funny because I worked for a bit for Wells Fargo, and they used to keep saying, run it like you own it. But it was the culture was the absolute opposite of that. They kept saying this, but they kept drilling down. You had to do things a certain way. And I have a very creative side, so I'm always looking for people that are good problem solvers. And it's always something to think about, that the solution to the problem might not be the most obvious. Obviously, if something's a horse, don't try to make it into a zebra. But at the same time, if something isn't working, it's okay to get creative. But I really think the biggest thing about growth mindset is letting people know that, you're not going to be there forever, especially on smaller teams. And how can you help people realize that they could one day take your place? And that's okay. That's a great thing.
Yeah, I love your approach and your attitude about that it's okay to prepare the next generation, if you will, of ownership. And it doesn't need to be a threat. It doesn't need to be competition. It's preparing them. And I love that you talk about with regard to growth mindset as potential. What's the potential here? What are we moving towards? I love that approach. I think that's absolutely fantastic. All right, question number 4. What ideas do you have on how leaders can manage emotional wellness for themselves usually?
I try to take a 10-minute walk every day. And I think the biggest thing, I mean, we talk about meditation, and I think having time to yourself. There are days where I put the phone away, I'm just reading a book, slowing down. I just read an article today about let's slow down time. We're so used to doing everything in 20-minute or less increments, right? I can't watch a movie without looking at my phone, or I can't read without checking what's going on. And if we can really learn in the present day to disengage a little bit, unless when I speak, and I didn't have to do it when I speak to children, but when I speak in front of groups, I always start by saying, unless you're an emergency room doctor, please turn off your phones, because there is nothing that's going to happen that can't wait till the end of our hour together.
I love that. And such great, you rattled off several things very quickly that deserve some contemplation. So I would encourage all of our audience members to just consider what Diane said about taking a walk or maybe meditating or taking a break for 20 minutes or some time alone. A lot of great ideas. How you choose to do that, of course, whatever works for you works for you.
Right.
But the great ideas that Diane is sharing with all of us about what we can do to manage emotional wellness, that's a much bigger topic now than it was 30 years ago.
But you know what the issue was 30 years ago? We didn't talk about this. And people had mental health issues that were ignored or glossed over. And there was a lot of alcohol. I mean, there still is, but I mean, there were functioning alcoholics and people taking drugs. I worked in New York in the 80s, and almost every day on my way to the subway, I saw the drug dealers selling cocaine to the Wall Street guys. That's how they survived.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. That's what happens if we don't manage our emotional well-being to an effective level. We start looking for other solutions. We don't want that to happen. And if you're a leader, even more critical for yourself and, of course, as it translates to your team members.
Again, this was Wall Street. This wasn't like in a back alley.
Right. Right out there. So
right out there.
All right. Well, last question, the fun question that we always like to wrap up with. I am so excited to hear this story. I cannot wait. Tell us a baseball story you've got that you're ready to share.
So, Shawn, like yourself, I'm a Phillies fan. And more importantly, I grew up in Philadelphia, so I come by it honestly. When I was a kid, we used to go to Veterans Stadium. My dad's company had a box, so we would go. And my French mother would sit there and say, I have no idea what's going on. But, I like baseball. And my husband, Art, who is from New York, also loves baseball. And when we were dating, his idea of a fun date was to take me to a Mets-Phillies game at Shea Stadium. And the hardest part was that after about the third inning, because of the number of beers that were being sold, I was no longer able to root for my home team because Art was afraid I would get beaten up. But we've done that several times. And to add like a coda to that, last year when we were in New York visiting our children, we took Art to a Mets-Yankees game at Citi Field. And he had an absolute blast, even though we were sitting next to a bunch of Yankee fans. So that's my baseball story.
I love it. It's so fun to hear about these couples or friends, whatever the relationship may be. And one of them roots for one team and the other roots for a completely different team. And there's oftentimes rivals. And to hear about how they figure out how to stay married or whatever, stay friends, whatever it is, despite the fact they've got this rivalry going. It's fun to me. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Go ahead.
I cannot tell you how many Mets games we used to listen to on the car radio when we were doing things on the weekends. And I'm like, Can't you like football? They only play once a week.
See, I love football too, so I'm more of a baseball guy.
Art is absolutely a baseball guy. And I think if you're a numbers person, baseball's the game. I mean, every stat available.
They've got numbers for everything now. Things I never even thought of. It's like, wow.
Right?
Well, Diane, this has been so much fun. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us and share some of your tidbits of wisdom regarding leadership and teams. I really very much appreciate it. How can people find you?
So the best way to find me is probably to shoot me an email. And my email is Diane, Diane, period, Warsoff, Warsoff, at exitfactor.com. Or they can call me at 385-342-3692. And I assume you'll put that in the show notes.
Yes, we will. We will include all of that good stuff. And yes, please reach out to Diane if you have any questions or want to know more about exit planning. And thanks to all of you. We're excited to kick off season 7. We look forward to more interaction throughout the year as we talk about this important topic of leadership and teams. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe or follow the podcast, whether you're watching it on YouTube or you're downloading it through Spotify or wherever you're listening or watching. Make sure you follow us because we'll have new episodes every week to talk about these important topics and these questions. Thanks so much for joining us and have a great day. This is Shawn Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. Be sure to follow or subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. And for more leadership tips, pick up your copy of Rapid Fire Leadership by going to rapidfireleadership.com, where you can also download free resources to help you in your leadership role. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.